I'm hearing in the media, we're likely to go in, this bear market's likely to extend because we're bound to, we're headed towards recession or this and that. So, all I know, or a lot of people know, is that recession is something terrible.
Right.
And it's not a great thing, but recession really doesn't have anything to do with the return of stocks or anything like that, except that, typically companies aren't doing quite as well, and that reflects in stock price.
Correct. And we do have a lot of things going on in the economy. I've got a publication we recently put out. I mean, we've got a war going on. We've got there's lockdowns for COVID in China. There's supply chain issues. There's the Federal Reserve raising interest rates, employment issues, all those things that are bearing on the stock market and making us that's hurting the economy and making people think that, hey, we might be going into a recession.
But kind of like a bear market or a 10% or a correction, a recession is a normal part of an economic cycle and an economy, because, the opposite of recession, once you bottom out of a recession, then you start going up, right?
And usually the stock market is a precursor. It runs ahead of those economic cycles.
That's correct. So if you were to look at the two charts pushed together, you would see that.
And the recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. And we had negative GDP growth in the first quarter. We obviously are in the middle of the second quarter, don't know what it is.
Right, and it's not. We're not certain whether we're headed in a recession, and recessions aren't easily predictable like people think.
No, they're not. That's good. What I hear and what kind of concerns me sometimes is, and it's not true at all. Mm-hmm. And one of the most well-known investors of all time was called, he goes by Mr. Sir John Templeton, and he called the 4 most dangerous words in investing are, "This time is different."
Right.
And that causes people to act where they make knee-jerk reactions. Mm-hmm. And truth be known, these things have all occurred over time, and we're a whole lot more ahead of where we were back then, even with these things we're facing. So, but let's get back on topic here and go towards, cover the recession more. Well, we defined it as 2 consecutive quarters of down GDP growth. And
so the article that I pulled, the next is actually a Forbes article, says that we've had 4 recessions since 2000. Let's see. 4 recessions since 2001. We had the COVID-19 actually was considered a recession. Okay, and when you think about what went on then, businesses slowed down or shut down, and obviously hurt the bottom line for a lot of businesses. We as investors obviously experienced that initial hit in the market, but the businesses, like we were talking about, it was a couple months later when they really felt the impact to their bottom line, because it was hard for them to do business. And, we came out of that recession really quickly, but it makes perfect sense. Well, I mean, basically that was a manufactured recession, and it may or may not have been necessary. I mean, that's not for us to debate, but, we basically, lives were put on hold, spending was put on hold for the most part, and it hurt a lot of businesses and the basically trade in the U.S. and around the world. So that's a recession. One of the most famous ones was the 2007 to 2009 with the housing market crash and the what was called the Great Recession.
Great Recession.
We all remember that, and we saw stocks pull back before on that, and then the .com bubble when that burst
at the first in 2001.
Right. And then the Gulf War recession, which happened in the 90s, 91, and you know, it was kind of a period where we've haven't. I think that came after not experiencing many bad. You know, we had a pretty nice little stock market run in the '80s, and had a, you know, growth in the economy, and saw that pull back. But so it, you know, the official recession is not something that happens all that often, but it happens once about every couple decades. You know, a decade or so. You know, and it's just kind of a part of it. The average, I think it said here in the article that the average span of a recession is 21 months. So, you know, less than 2 years, and that's average. I mean, we just thought we've seen one that lasted 2 months or 3 months in the COVID recession, and then we've, you know, the obviously the Great Recession, that was about a 2-year period of time.
Yeah, that was significant. That's right.
But we all came out on the other end okay.
We did. And so the fourth one we wanted to cover today was depression.
Right.
And hopefully we won't see that. I think the Great Recession was about as close as we've been, definitely in our lifetime, and for many individuals listening have the opportunity to listen. And the Depression, the one that gets the most is the Great Depression back in 1929.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, the depression is something that we obviously haven't experienced in our lifetime, and hopefully we won't. I mean, you know, you can never say never, but you know, that's when you've got extensive job loss. There's no opportunity to earn a living, with also just outrageous inflation. And you know, we're having some pretty high inflation right now, but I mean, you're talking about unaffordable price, like
correct. Where people are running on the banks during that period of time, and things that were just not necessarily rational.
And we didn't quite have all the policies in place that can kind of stop that before it gets out of control, like we may now. Now, you know, there's always new ways of things happening, so you can't ever say that it won't happen, but recessions are fairly normal. Depressions are rare, you know. However, even though coming out of the Depression, we had one of the greatest stock market booms that we've ever had in our, you know, history. So there's hope even after that.